Alright, there's the beginning problem. And what two equations do we normally start with? Bottom two. So on the bottom two we have a -8 and a -4. What should we do? What do we want to make that -4 into? We need the same kind of numbers right here. We've got a
just like times them together or something.
Yeah, we're going to multiply this bottom by something. What do we multiply it by to get an 8? Multiply by 2. So if we multiply by 2, we'll leave the second one the same. So it stays as -8x minus 3y minus 8z, and then 48. But on the bottom one, when you multiply it by 2, you get -8x minus 8y plus 6z, and then that's equal to 20. If your signs are the same, out here you got to do what? You got to minus. Yeah, we have to subtract here because these signs are the same, -8 and -8. So if we subtract those two, these cancel out, and you'll have a -3 minus a -8. -3 minus -8 is the same as -3 plus 8. It's a double negative. So you should have a 5y, and then a -8 minus 6 would be a -14. And 48 minus 20 is going to be 28. Now that equation you've got to write off to the side somewhere and hold it, because we're going to go back and do the same process with the top two equations. And that first equation will stay all the way through. You're not going to replace it, so you might want to write that one down too. So now what's the next two equations we're going to mess with? Top two, yeah. These two up here, and I have a -1 and a -8. What should I do? Yeah, I can times this top equation by 8, so it'll give me a -8 here to match this one there. So that's what we'll do. But keep your top one, or actually you're multiplying the top one by 8, so 8 times a -x is -8x. And then 8 times 3y is 24y, and 8 times minus 3z is -24z, and 8 times 10 is 80. Now the second one doesn't change. It's -8x minus 3y minus 8z equals 48. Now we have the same signs again, so we have to subtract. And if we subtract those two, these -8x's cancel out. And you're going to need 24 minus a -3. That's a double negative, so it's plus. Gives you a 27. And then we go to -24z minus -8z. That's another double negative. That's the same as -24 plus 8. That'll be minus 16z. And then 80 minus 48 is 32. So you want to write that equation down. 27y minus 16z equals 32. Alright, so from this point we have to take a look at these two here. We want to create something to where we can cancel out the y's, or maybe we could cancel out the z's, whichever one we think would be easier. 5 and 27, to get the least common multiple between those two, looks like you would just have to multiply them together. 14 and 16, I don't know, I think that would be rough. That'd be kind of hard. I think we ought to try, we'll try 5, or not 5 there, but we'll multiply this one by 27 and the bottom one by 5. That might be the path of least resistance on this one. So when you go through the middle equation and multiply by 27, you're going to come up with 27 times 5, which is 135. And then 27 times 14 is going to be minus 378y, or not y, but z. And then 27 times 28 is 756. We've just multiplied everything on that one by 27. And now multiply everything down here by 5 to get 135y minus 80z equals 160. And now that we have items here that are both positive, what operation should we do to get rid of them? Minus. So if we do minus here, it cancels those out. And now you have a negative 378 minus a negative 80. That's a double negative, so you're really adding. And that comes out to be a negative 298 z. And then you have 756 minus 160. And that turns out to be 596. And that's going to work out really neat because you just divide 596 by negative 298. Strange looking z there, but that's what it is. Kind of looks like an 8. But we'll go with it. And the answer is a negative 2 for z. So now you have that wedge formation here. You can go back and solve for the other two variables. So plug in negative 2 for z in this one. And that's 5y minus 14 times negative 2 now equals 28. And negative 14 negative 2 is going to be a plus 28. And here's a tip. Anytime you see something like plus 28 and plus 28 on opposite sides, that just means you're going to end up with a 0 on the right side because they will cancel each other out. So clearly y is going to be equal to 0. So now with z equals negative 2 and y equals 0, you can go back to that top equation and solve for x. Negative x plus 3 times 0 minus 3 times negative 2 equals 10. So you'll have 0, then a plus 6. Of course, that 0 just drops out. And you'll move that 6 to the right, change the sign, and get a 4. But since you have a negative x, that means you have to divide the 4 by negative 1 and come up with an answer of negative 4. So altogether, it would be the x value is negative 4, the y is 0, and the z is negative 2. On this problem, if you start at the bottom 2, you're going to have to multiply by 3 here and then 7. And on that middle equation, it's a negative 21x minus 3y and minus 24z. And that's a negative 6. Then on the bottom one, it's negative 21x minus 28y minus 28z equals 7. Did anybody find a mistake already? Okay. Yeah, when you make them at the very beginning, it's rough from there on out. Since you have the same signs, you'll have to subtract. And when you do that, you'll have negative 3 minus a negative 2. That's a negative y. And then negative 24 minus a negative 28 is plus 4z. And negative 6 minus 7 is a negative 13. So that one you have to write down and save it. Well, there's my mistake. I said negative 2, but it should be negative 3 minus a negative 28. So that is indeed 25y, a positive 25y. So I'll make that adjustment. So this is what you have to save, and we're going to go back and look at these two here. And for those, you'll multiply the top by 7 and the bottom by 5. So you should come up with 35x plus 63y plus 14z equals 18 times 7. Right off the top of my head, I don't know it, but it's negative 126. And then the second one, you'll have negative 35x minus 5y minus 40z equals a negative 10. And you have opposite signs. So these would be gone if you add. And 63 plus a negative 5 is 58. 14 plus a negative 40 is a negative 26. Negative 126 plus a negative 10 is negative 136. So you would have to hold that one. The 58y minus 26z equals a negative 136. So we have a 25 and a 58 out here, which would be crazy to deal with, and then a 4 and a 26. I think we ought to deal with the 4 and the 26, but I'll do it differently if somebody else wants me to.
Yeah, I did the Y.
You did the Y. Which one did you do?
I don't know. Z.
Okay. Well, the Z is easier, so I'll choose the Y since she did it with the Y. And if we do it that way, you have to multiply by 58 here and 25 down there. So 58 times 25 is going to be 1450 y, and then 58 times 4 is going to be 232, and then we'll have 58 times 13, a negative 13. That would be a negative 754. Now on the bottom you'll have 1450 y, 25 and 26. We'll get a minus 650 z, and then 25 and 136. That's going to give us a negative 3400. So your signs are different. You have to subtract. If you cancel there, and then go to 232 minus a negative 650, that should give you an 882 from the double negative. And then add those two negatives together there. You should come up with a negative 3554, I believe. 754 and plus 3400, 4154. Oh, that's my fault. I was way off. That's what I get for doing it in my head. Negative 4154. So now we have to divide negative 4154 over. Well, let's see here.
I just did calculator, like here.
Yeah. Did you get a different number right here?
Yeah.
What did you get?
2646.
Oh, you're right. I added two negatives together. I should be subtracting and making a double negative. That's my fault. Yeah, you're right. So we'll scratch that and scratch that. It should be negative 754 and then plus 3400. Yeah, 2646 is what it should be. 2646, and then you're going to divide by 882. And when you do that, it'll come out to be 3. That's a whole lot better. Alright, so we have z is 3. We have to go back and set up the wedge. And you need your original equation from the top, 5x plus 9y plus 2z equals negative 18. And then 25y plus 4z equals negative 13. And we'll have z equals 3. I don't know why I started to write a 5, but z equals 3. And that's your wedge formation. So we're going to plug in z equals 3 into the second equation. So that's a 4 times 3 equals negative 13. That'll give us a 12, which we're going to have to bump to the right. become minus 12. And that gives us 25y equals a negative 25. So clearly the answer would be negative 1. So we have negative 1 for y, 3 for z, and we're going to plug in a negative 1 here and a 3 here. And when you do that, I don't know if I have enough room for this or not, but we can start it at the bottom. You'll have a 5x minus 9 plus 6 equals negative 18 from plugging in up here. And we can simplify that to 5x minus 9 plus 6 is minus 3. And when you bump that minus 3 to this side and make it plus 3, it'll be a negative 15. So 5x equals negative 15. Clearly x is going to be negative 3. So your final answer is negative 3, negative 1, and then positive 3. On these problems, there are 2 that are required for homework, and you can pick any 2 that you want to do for homework. You can do the remaining 2 for extra credit to get extra points if you want.